Hey guys, welcome back to another video here on Ruru's Rings. If you don't know me, my name is Rebecca Clark. I'm the creator and owner of Ruru's Rings. I'm a multidisciplinary artist specializing in jewelry, and today we're going to be making some jewelry. I got an order for one of our spirited stone rings, and so today we're going to be making that ring. I'm going to be taking you through the process of how I make this ring. It's a bezel set white horse jasper ring. It's very simple. It's made in sterling silver. It's going to be in a size 4.5. I think this is the smallest ring size I've made. I think the smallest I've ever made was a 5.5. So I'm gonna be making a 4.5, so it's really tiny. There's no rhyme or reason at all. I basically take my stone, I lay it on my base sheet metal, and I draw a circle around it so I know how big the stone is. I use like a pencil, draw a circle around it. And then I just cut a strip, depending on the depth of the stone. I cut a strip out and I roll it along with the stone, like such. No rhyme or reason, no mathematical equation, which I know there is. I'm well aware that there are math equations you can do to get the exact size and strip of wire needed for like the bezel and stuff, but like I never did good in math, so I just eyeball it and it seems to work. So I'm wearing my PJ pants. But the top is business, bottom is not, so I'm just really cozy today. Like, I don't know why it's that big of a deal. Let me be cozy. I love it. I love talking in an accent. Absolutely adore it so much. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking my millimeter gauge, and when the stone starts to curve upward and the wall's no longer straight, I'm basically taking my millimeter gauge and following when it starts to curve in, because that's when, that's how high your bezel needs to be so that it can curve in slightly, just a little bit, to hold the stone in. If there's no curvature or anything that the bezel's like holding, you know, it's just gonna, the stone's just gonna fall out. I have it marked out on my strip of metal that I use for my bezel wire. You can kind of see, I think, the line that was made. So I'm just gonna be cutting this with my saw. Okay, so I have the bezels formed and I'm about to make our rings out of our wire. The only thing I need to preface before we move on is that when you are making a bezel, you need to make sure that before it's even soldered, so both of the sides that need to be soldered are on facing towards you guys, before they're soldered, you need to make sure that the stone fits inside. I always have one side that I make sure is on the bottom. So this is the flatter side. So I will be soldering this to the metal. The top side is a little bit more crooked because it was the one that I sawed. So the bottom of this is what is going to be attached to our bezel. Same goes for this one. I have the tops of what's going to be facing out once they're like set onto the metal facing upward already. So that's not going to be like a mistake thing. The second thing is that you need to make sure your stone fits inside of the bezel on the top half, like how you would put it in. See how that went in pretty smoothly? Same for this tanzanite. It goes in and it fits. The thing about that is that you need to make sure that it fits like that instead of pushing your bezel on top of your stone. Because if you are trying to do it by pushing your bezel on top of the stone and you're not making sure that it can go in through the top, it might be that the metal is slightly formed to where, you know, once you solder it and you can't put it in on the top, it's because you were putting it in where the bezel was pushed down on it. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I love how I asked, like you can give me a response. So now that that's out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and solder our bezels and flatten out our back plates and get them to where I can solder the bezels onto the back plates. So this is very much like the same process where you just solder your ring, like a regular ring. You just solder the seam shut with the bezels. Before I get into any soldering, I'm gonna go ahead and form our rings around our mandrel. So again, this has to be a 4.5 ring for this one. I am gonna make the tanzanite a probably size 8.5, maybe 9. So my trick when I'm forming my wire around the metal is I always go like a half size smaller to make sure that it fits like very tightly against the mandrel, to make sure that it is going to be like an exact fit. So now that I had the metal like super tight, you can see how it's like very tightly holding on to the mandrel because I formed my ring at like a size smaller. So I'm gonna just slide it there, make sure it's gonna be the exact fit, that it's flush all the way around the mandrel, and it is. And so I'm just gonna mark with my pencil where that is, make sure that I cut at the right spot. And I'm just gonna use my flush cutters and all right, so we have everything positioned on our charcoal block. I'm just gonna go and we have everything positioned on our charcoal block. Remember, I always say this in like almost every video I make, no flux, no flow. The flux is what allows the solder to flow. I have the I'm using easy solder. I have easy solder on all these little spots, so I'm just gonna go ahead and go in and solder them together. I had the piece at such a high temperature that once I like placed the solder, it immediately melted. And so that's kind of what you're aiming for. You're not necessarily melting the solder onto the piece. You're heating up the piece so much that the solder melts onto it. It allows the connection to flow better. So I'm just going to pick these up and test them out, make sure that they are, you know, like soldered all the way through, and get them put on their back plates and get the rings filed so that I can attach the back plates to them. I look on the inside of where I soldered to make sure that it flowed all the way through. And on this one, you can see on the inside that the solder did flow all the way through. I'm gonna put these on my little anvil block so that it draws the heat off while I prep my back plates.
to add some text. So here's
I just picked our rings up out of the pickle pot, so we have our pickled rings. We're just gonna go in with the sanding, polishing wheels and get them polished up and set them in our vise to set our stones in. Here's another thing I'm working on. This is like an imitation of the Cartier ring, or the 3 stacked Trinity ring. I've always loved Cartier. That's like my favorite jewelry brand, and I would absolutely adore to work with them in the future if that ever happens. And honestly, just own a Cartier piece. I adore Cartier. But because I can't do that just yet, I decided to make a Trinity ring, just to see if I can make it, and you know, it'd be like a cool fidget. I started fidgeting with it already, but I feel like it'd be a fun ring to, you know, play around with, and yeah, it'd just be a nice little ring to play around with and fidget with and yeah, mess with. So gotta get this filed and polished up as well. Polish them up and they're ready to set our stones in. This one's already done just because it literally was just bands stacked on bands. Anyways, we have our ready to set rings. So I'm gonna get it in my vise and get them ready to set. All right, let's pop our stone in. We have our stone set. We're just gonna go back in and buff out the scratches and any dents made during the setting process and get these to where they are shiny, brand new looking rings. And here are our finished pieces. I think they look so pretty, super shiny. I absolutely adore them. I think this is gonna look so cool. What a statement ring. What a statement stone, you know? I think it looks really cool. Very Western feel. And then the tanzanite with the added side ball detail. Love it. Thank you so much for your order. If you're watching this, I hope you absolutely adore your ring and you enjoyed watching a little bit of the process of making it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video where we made a simple bezel set stone ring. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you do feel so inclined, and leave any prayer requests in the comments down below and I'll be praying for you. So yeah, I'll see you guys when I see you. Love you guys. Bye. Mwah.